Hey everyone! And welcome to the lands of Alaire. I'm Ian the Dungeon Master, and I'm here joined by my two friends, Tori and Aaron, my younger brother Tyler, our good friend Scott, and my older brother TJ. And it's his birthday. Happy birthday, TJ!
Thank you.
Yeah. So, we have finally gotten back into a position to do the Lands of Alaire regularly, and I have a good recap here. However, the end result is going to be that this episode is going to cover a ton of stuff, kind of all at once. It's going to wrap up a bunch of plot lines that have been coming about. It's going to be a lot of RP and whatnot. However, I will forewarn you of the audience that the pacing is going to be probably kind of breakneck in comparison to a lot of our other sessions. So, let's see just how much we can get done. Here is the recap. So last we left off, our heroes Erlon, Melee, Leander, Jar, and Gilroy had retreated into the mountains to the west of the Whispering Woods, diverting large swaths of Farinwellian soldiers from their assault on Waterwheel. Plans were swiftly made as the group realized that, through Erlon, our party could make a swift retreat into the Chamber of the Everlasting Father. After holding off against waves of enemies as well as the leader of these particular legions, General Reeves, our party's companions, Gentel, Hurston, Zorn, and Trollfame, rode the Landmaster further west over the hills, providing further diversion. The moment our party entered the chambers, they came face to face with a petrifying Azelriak, the druid they had freed during their adventures some weeks prior. Azelriak spoke vaguely of how this event was foreseen, how he serves a powerful entity of nature older than the oldest trees, and how this process of petrification was not only voluntary, but the source of his packed power as well. After resting for some time, our party pushed further into the chambers, overcoming a crumbling bridge suspended over a vast pool of lava, which was inhabited by various furious fire giants. All throughout these crumbling tunnels and ruins, they found there were many, many more petrified druids, all frozen in anguished poses. Finally, our party came face to face with the entity itself, Diastris of the Whispering Woods, who invited them to parley, taking the form of a masked woman. This paragraph, I used the correct
Tenses?
Well, yes, I did. However, the terminology in reference to this entity, as it is genderless. So as I went through, I was like, yeah. So Diastris explained that it was by its will that no settlement could persist on the overworld in the land of Carid Morin. It claimed that it was by its doing, see, that's what I'm talking about, it was by its doing that the Great Lake formed, and the elves who lived there long ago were driven away. It also described an even greater power, one that was attracted by the growth of such civilizations, capable of setting everything back. In closing, the entity told our party to turn back, lest they tempt its wrath, and immediately unleashed an ambush of terrible beaked creatures. Our party was not deterred, except for Leander, who was a bit unnerved, consistently claiming that the statues were moving, despite that being total and complete falsehoods. They pushed into deeper caverns, filled with subterranean rivers, and found ancient ruins. During this venture, they faced huge writhing masses of vines and mud, shambling mounds, and stumbled across the performing goblin Goodlegs, who finally agreed to return to his father Rotbeard back in Waterwheel. After facing a basilisk and other guardians of Diastris' inner sanctum, a door was spotted. The party quickly discovered it to be covered in face-like prints, those of the druids, who were long petrified. There was some discussion, and ultimately it was decided to smash the statues, opening the way forward by destroying each of these wards. There, our party found Diastris' physical form, a tree, bonded to a ring of teleportation runes. Diastris admitted defeat and made an offer. If the party were to convince the residents of Waterwheel to move underground, or live atop the waters and rivers and lakes, then it would ally themselves with their cause, and come to their aid when the time was right, once its powers were restored. There was much discussion, yet ultimately the party decided to take Diastris' offer. And so within this subterranean chamber, with this great looming tree, which sits atop a glowing torus, a ring of runes that you know as a teleportation ring, the voice of Diastris speaks out once more, and you can immediately tell that this entity is far more amicable than it was when you had first arrived in its chambers, and probably more amicable than it has been, as you realize many of the events that you have come across in Kaer Morhen were probably due to its will. The frost giants being whipped into a frenzy is the doing of Diastrus, and all that came from that also was kind of a domino effect from this entity's will on the land.
Mines.
Huh?
The mines.
Yep, that as well.
Portion of it, anyway.
So on and so forth. Much of that and those events all kind of come from this one entity who is obviously a powerful force in this land. And you feel that much of its hatred, much of its concern towards you is now gone. And as it speaks towards you, it goes, "I'm very glad to see such mortals with the wisdom to set down axe and fire. You see, it has been long since I've held reasonable conversation. Many who lived here I thought to be fools, and that their means of growth and learning, they only justified the ends, and the ends would be their ultimate deaths. So, though my power has waned by you making your way into my inner sanctum, what could I do for you in this time of need?"
Slow down the fair.
I was gonna say,
While we wait for.
taking care of Farnwell would certainly be a good start.
Yes, I sense the tremor of their bootsteps across the land, the fields near your settlement of Waterwheel. I'll see what I can do. In the least, I can offer you very quick transportation out of the Whispering Woods to the border of that settlement. There, you'll be able to reunite with your allies. And as she states this, the teleportation ring begins to glow a soft green and appears to activate. And you guys can leave whenever you want. However, if you want to rest, you definitely can take full HP and spells and whatnot. And if there's anything more you would like to ask of this entity, you certainly can.
I would probably just commune with it for more wisdom.
Absolutely. So you just kind of take position next to the tree and meditate, and you feel the knowledge and wisdom radiating from this thing. And you know it's certainly not evil, it's certainly not a force for good either. And as it brings forth these images of the past, you can see that Diastrus often took this form of a woman, though it is quite a bit more than that if it wills to be, and spoke with these other greater beings in ages past, such as Gralter, the ice giant that you know from your visions, is present in many of these this imagery that it sends to your mind, essentially. And there were many meetings between these greater powers, essentially, of the older ages, and many of them, it seemed they had peaceful discussion for many, many centuries. However, as knowledge began to amass, and they realized, you can see many of them looking towards the stars during these meetings, amongst great Stonehenge-esque ruins is the types of spaces where they would group up. And they seem to be pointing towards the stars, the alignment of the general astrology of Alaire, and through that, a growing tension builds throughout the group, and you can see them divert. However, Diastrus isn't able to give you exact wording on the events, just able to display the imagery of what she saw happen. And past that, time seems to flow incredibly quickly in this state, and what appears to be a dreamlike moment of a good 10 seconds for you, your allies are already approaching, saying it's time to go.
Yeah, so I just hazily wake up.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, no, go ahead.
No, okay.
You guys step through the portal?
I suppose, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Been itching to.
And you guys are teleported to the outskirts of the Whispering Woods in the dead of night. And you can see the fields before kind of glinting, the waters of the rivers that pour forth from the hills are glinting in the moonlight and starlight, and you can see that there are scattered Farnwellian camps. However, they don't have any sort of active siege going on. There's no flaming boulders arcing through the sky or anything. All seems relatively calm in the least, and you guys are able to, under cover of night, swiftly make your way to the gates, and they're very quickly opened up by mechanical means, and you can see up top Singstalter the gnome looking down, and he goes, "It worked! It definitely worked! It's been, well, not exactly the easiest here, but a lot easier than it would have been. Godric is waiting for you in Rawbeards."
It's good to see you as always.
Yeah, and you too. I keep watching you guys just like leave and come back, and the craziest things happen. Bad news though on some fronts. Godric will tell you. Come on, and he leads you off to Rawbeard's brewery. And you guys swiftly find in the common room, of course, meeting up with you immediately is Gentel, Hurston, Zorn, Frolfane, and Hiron. Hiron, who's stuck behind. You can see Hiron has an interesting object in hand. Throw me a perception, those of you who may be interested in this.
Nice. 19.
Nice.
15.
Yep.
24.
Mm-hmm.
19.
10.
So, everyone but Erlon, and the only reason for that is Frolfane is... you guys can see, yeah, he has what looks to be a looking glass of brass and very ornate construction. And it has a white jewel on the very end of it that you would peer through. It's obviously some sort of magical device, and you could throw Arcana if you felt like it to determine its purpose.
Yes, I would. That's a 14.
I watched that roll away.
Yeah, it was going to be a 24.
21.
So, Jar, and really not too long after Gilroy, you guys are able to surmise that it's for recording what happened here. Hiron must have peered from some various angles and made sure to get a good watch over the Farrenwellian assault so that he would be able to have some proof to provide to the Ellenvirans back in Sumedia. So he has been not particularly idle during this whole experience, for certain. And in the background of the common room, you can see two goblins embracing. One of them short, little stubby legs, one of them very strong, hefty legs. Yes, indeed. It seems as though the general feeling, especially the way that Godric kind of presents himself to you, that the diversion worked, and, well, looks like Clara's safe, and we're not done with it all quite yet, though, you see. We're running low on arrows and men, and so I hear reinforcements are still some time away. I'm hoping we can make it through the morning, but, and you'd see Godric, though he's standing tall, has personally suffered quite a few wounds throughout the past few days. He must have been leading whatever defense there was against whatever forces remained, and Singstalter pipes up and he goes, yeah, we lost the majority of those landmasters too, which doesn't set us really too far back, but I don't think that's going to work again, so looks like we're going to fight it.
So, Leander, this is the point where you get to tell them how you sold them out.
Well,
Or melee can assist, I'm sure.
we made a deal.
Godric goes, deal.
Yes, with Diastrus, woodland god of some woodland deity of some sort, who seems to rule over this land of Karen Morin, at least this section of it. And
Godric nods and he goes, in my youth, I grew up in those mountains, and often the frost giants there would commune, speak of such an entity, say that she would enter their dreams, tell them where to attack next.
She can do more than that.
yes,
Oh my.
and it sounds as if the lake of Karen Morin may have been caused by her.
What force could create such a thing?
She seems like she can be very powerful when it comes to this region, but the deal was either go underground or stick to the rivers and lakes, and she'll take care of Farrenwell. At least in Caradmoran.
You can see Godric's brows furrow as he has to take this into consideration, but Singstalter seems the most taken aback by far. And he goes, my gate! My lightning gate! I can't just dismantle that. Those parts are unique.
She'll dismantle it for you, assuredly.
She could do that? I guess she's beyond my engineering then.
Think of all the new challenges that await you.
Yeah, we wanted to make a floating city. That would definitely be a challenge, yeah. You can see you've immediately diverted his mind. And yeah, with a new engineering feat before him, he begins considering that heftily. It is during this moment, however, that a familiar hand kind of grasps your shoulder, or at least your upper back, Jar. And as you turn back, you can see Limrolt the dwarf has made his way here, and he's looking up towards you, and he goes, Jar!
Limrolt, my friend!
Yeah! Good to see you! And
Indeed.
you're still alive.
Yes, very much so.
That's
At least I think so.
that's decent news. Certainly. What's the word around Waterwheel? So I've seen there's all sorts of corpses out front, just ready for looting.
This is the end of Waterwheel, I'm afraid. They're going to have to pack up and leave.
I just started to get fond for the place.
Yes, I know. But, yeah, blame it on them. It's their fault. I had nothing to do with it. I said no, but they're selling everyone out.
He looks down at his clothes and he says, I'll never find a better tailor. Well, that's sad news.
They'll still be around. Just not here.
Very well.
The people, just not the place.
Oh, I'll never find a map with the same water wheel on it.
It was barely on any anyways.
That's true.
Oh, don't go and let him get away with it.
Anyway, well, it's good to hear from you, and I've been down south. I was sent there, by message, and there's a halfling village that popped up out of nowhere. They wanted someone to scout it out, and I put on the old, facade and went on down there as my traveling feather merchant, and, it's a nice place. I advise going there if you get the chance.
Right. Did you manage to sell any feathers while you were there?
No, but I did drink a lot of mead on your tab. So, when you get down there, have a handful of gold ready.
Goodness.
Tell
Might
them-
as well embroider your name on my purse.
Probably. Tell him it's for Kirsten. Not Limrolt. Kirsten.
Kirsten, okay, I'll make note of this. Kirsten.
Is Hurston in the building?
No. Yeah, Kirsten is in the building. Limrolt turns over and he goes, "Oh my. Hey, do you know him? Hurston, the cart rider? Yeah, relatively.
yes,
yeah.
okay, yeah, okay. The dwarf that.
You know, you haven't had a.
Yes, I know of him. He's an alright guy.
Yeah, he fought in the Civil War some decades ago, and well, we were on opposite sides sometimes, and the same side the other times, and well, best of luck to you with him. I remember him riding horses, and for dwarves, well, we're not the best riders, so that didn't usually end up all too well. Yeah, anyway, best of luck to you in your journeys, and if I stumble across you again, Jar, maybe I'll have some valuable gem or something. I don't know, I'll think of a way to make it up to you.
Alright, do that.
Limrolt makes his way on through the common room, probably grabbing a few drinks, and then retiring for the evening. And so, you guys are left throughout a rather quiet night. You're able to rest. It doesn't seem... There's a few calls in the very early mornings to keep additional watch atop the ramparts towards certain parts of the field as soldiers amass, but never is there a forward charge or a large enough amassing of soldiers that you actually need to report and make do. And so, is there anything more you guys would like to do in the evening? Anyone you'd like to check in on?
I'm checking on Godric.
Sure. And as Godric looks upon you, he goes, something's changed about you, friend.
Yes. You could call me Erlon the Strong, also Frostborn.
Frostborn!
I've been blessed by Gralter.
And upon that name, it actually all comes to dawn on him, and he goes, those pacts are long forgotten, and they're renewed in your blood.
Ties have been sown.
He kind of takes 2 steps back, and he goes, I was honored to fight alongside you before, but now, with the blood of frost giants flowing beside us, I think we may stand a chance.
I think so too, brother.
And he raises a mug, and there's actually a bit of uplifting of the mood throughout the common room. Jantel and Zorn are chatting a bit quietly by the hearth. You can see the two are talking amongst each other. And does anyone go up to see those
I
two?
was actually gonna see how Chantel was doing.
Sure.
So.
And yeah, upon walking up to them, you can hear Jantel go, this all may have been much easier if we were at full force. And Zorn goes, yeah, I miss Bilberry. It'd be good to have him at our side again. He's had enough time of respite. Maybe it's time we fish him from that handle. And that's about the moment when you come up behind Jantel, and she turns back with a smile, and she goes, Maylee, it's very good to see you, and you survived those chambers, obviously. That must have been no simple task. I could feel the resonant energies from that place. The nature magics were so strong I could barely bear it.
You were talking about fetching Bilberry?
Yes. Well, you see, we were just thinking, if we had someone of his talents, then perhaps those siege weapons couldn't fire so often if you could sneak to them in the night and cut some ropes. I'm swift and silent, but he's just a smaller target than me. And Zorn goes, and my magic is good for holding a gate for certain, but to move quietly, no. I cannot manage such a thing. Always appreciated that about him. And if we do head south soon, could you make a promise to me? Let's stop by his home. Let's see how his family is doing. We owe it to him.
I see no issue with it. Take it up with Leander, but I say we do it anyway.
And Jantel and Zorn kind of nod, and in that moment, Hiron walks beside you two and 3 and goes, yes, I do believe we should be making our way south as soon as possible, or at least once this battle has concluded. We'll see what tomorrow brings, and past that, I'm going straight to Sumedia. If there's a slight diversion, I wouldn't mind, but this report is important, and we may very well find an entire new kingdom on our side with this evidence.
I know that the watches are probably fine, but maybe Chantel and Mainly could do like a loop before
Sure.
she calls it.
Yeah, she'd be more than willing to.
Yeah.
And anything more, guys?
Well, Clara and Arena are still at.
They're still in Steelhammer Stronghold. However, in due time, you'll see that they are pretty much on their way.
Right.
Because as the sun rises, you guys do your walk, and generally, you can see them in their camps, and you can see them amassing, and especially when the sun rises, there's this tense hour of waiting. Light stretches over the muddy fields that line the rivers that pour forth from the western mountains, and Farrenwellian soldiers with dirty banners line up once more. They seem wary, yet they still outnumber your forces 20-1. In the distance, you can see the lines of siege weaponry preparing to fire the last of their ammo. On your side, a meager array of archers await atop the barricade, and Godric stands with Fralthane and a small band of surviving warriors ready to make a stand at the gates. As you look upon the battlefield, all seems to go calm. The winds stop, the birds clear away. On the eastern horizon, you can see the glinting of spears, rows and rows of them. To your north, a low rumbling that seems to be gaining intensity by the moment. Godric gives the order to fire, and a small force of warriors charges out of the gates, surprising the Farrenwellian forces. In that moment, frost giants pour forth from the forest, cleaving their way through the battalions in swaths with great tree-like clubs. To the east, there is a bellowing cry as Sarangarian warriors charge. Hundreds of warriors on powerful steeds make their way through to the center of the battle, and to their backs, thousands more infantry, spears and shining shields in hand, emblazoned on every soldier a pair of angel wings, either on their helms or shields or chests. One particular warrior, who you swiftly determined to be Jarl Morgaunt of Sarangar himself, rides forth before all the others. Wearing regal plate, he begins a bellowing roar that can be heard above all the chaos, and the Farinwellians are thoroughly routed. Spells are cast, arrows are slung, swords and axes and daggers meet their enemies' forces. However, you know from the moment the sun rose upon your backs, the Battle of Waterwheel was won. Once the fighting stops, many scattered bands of Farinwellian soldiers retreating around the mountains to the southeast. You can also see the giants retreat without a word into the Whispering Woods. In the distance, traveling the southern road, there's a large, luxurious wagon that approaches the gates. Sevelius has arrived in Carid Moran.
That's ominous.
Just what we needed.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
It's my best friend.
So,
Work.
throughout the rest of the afternoon, there is much celebration and a good degree of mourning as well, as the bodies are cleared away. Some families grieve their lost warriors. There's quite a bit of cleanup to be done outside of the walls of Waterwheel. However, the wheels continue turning, and many of the civilians emerge from the caves and begin to go about cleaning up the streets and at least making the town accessible to a degree once more. As well as you can see, there are contingencies of farmers who are bringing forth relief grain, essentially, as the siege lasted long enough to drain Waterwheel of its, all the booze and food and clean water it has within. So they actually had to immediately send relief supplies. And as Sevelius makes his way on through, emerging from his cart onto the stone streets under the sun, and his cart kind of, the axles groan, and it kind of tilts to the side, because he is such a massive blob of a man. He looks upon all of you, and Godric, many of your allies gathered about, and he goes, "That was impressive! Your first regal victory, and now you command a regal army. By my doing. Not to take all the glory, you see, but that was rather magnificent. Such a routing hasn't been achieved in, many a century. Now then, what to do with your soldiers here? Obviously, there is a relief effort to commit to, but I'd like to hear what your plans are."
May need help moving.
Yes.
Yes.
We'll need to probably use the soldiers to help evacuate Waterwheel as soon as possible. I know people need to rest, but
Evacuate?
We made a deal with some gods.
You've come quite far. Very interesting. And finally we meet, Jar. I've been thinking about how we can solidify this relationship.
Oh, this sounds interesting.
Get out.
Don't you mind?
Anyone that Melee dislikes, I like. So we are off to a good start.
Well then, losses on our side are minimal. Your legions are still strong, and yes, I do believe, as I am a man of the people, that we should commit to making sure Waterwheel and its descendants are safely relocated, and that they have the manpower to rebuild. So you say, this entire settlement needs to be abandoned? That is a shame.
Suppose so. Would have to be anyways if... Suppose... I don't want to say if you didn't show up, but perhaps something like that.
we would have lost more men without or more fighters without the frost giants. I believe that was a part of Diastrus's plan.
Very intriguing. I did not imagine you could make allies with such creatures.
Well, there are costs, obviously.
Seems so. Well,
I believe the term is alliance of convenience.
I know the feeling. Well then, now that this battle is won, there are many in the near future. What do you intend to do? Where do you head next?
Well, we've lost our one true piece of leverage for the time being. Clara is in Steelhammer Stronghold.
Oh, worry not. You see, many of the armaments your legion holds were produced in Steelhammer Stronghold. So I heard there was a miraculous upbringing of iron veins in their minds.
Miraculous indeed.
Yes.
And with those new resources, well, this Mayor Benneville and the young Raoun, they were more than willing to listen. I gave them a personal sum of gold, and they provided your legions with fine armaments. I'd say it's a good degree of why this battle went so well. If it was bronze scimitars all the way around, or rusting Sargarian swords from the Civil War 10 years back, I don't even know if our forces would have turned the tide here.
True. Once again, we are in your debt. But where is Clara?
Yes, well, I sent message by pigeon. She should be arriving within a few days, and the most depends on how difficult the journey is.
Oh, pedestrian.
Not all are capable of your feats, Gilroy.
Truly.
I do what's available to me.
Outside of that,
I think Maylee's going to propose going south. Tell about their conversation with Zorn and Chantel.
No doubt.
So, I don't know.
Yes, I do think south past Ellenvere is the way to go. I don't know if we have to accompany our elven friend to Zaida, but
Sumedia.
Sumedia.
It's right above Zaida.
Let's try not to go to Zaida. And then, well, we'll see where that takes us.
Sevelius goes, south, in Ellenvere. See, that was the other piece of news that I received. My companion, Reshkara, he says that there was many ongoings down there, interesting events. The elves aren't quite so willing to join our forces, it seems.
no, they took quite offense to the suggestion at all. Seemed to want to remain as a neutral party of sorts, but we did meet with Reshkara. He seems mostly on our side, but unfortunately we were banished from the kingdom.
If that's so, well then, if you're going to make your way south, perhaps you're going to need a little bit of cover. I could provide such a thing. We could magically refurbish your landmaster there, or I could provide an entourage of sorts and make it appear as though you're traveling diplomats, or we'll come up with something.
Performing troupe.
Seems most fitting. Well then, I'm glad we had the time to catch up, and there is much work to be done. Puts his hands on his hips and turns around, looking at the destruction before him, the many toppled buildings and piles of rubble, and he goes, honestly, this could have been worse. I'll tell you, having an idle legion is not a good thing. These Sargarians, well, I can't say that I find it agreeable, but they've been looking for war for some years. And now that they've found it, we'd best keep their hands busy. And he immediately turns and begins essentially barking out orders. And you can see, if there's one thing Sevelius is truly good at, it's organizing large groups of people. He actually is very good at commanding, and work begins immediately as your legion of several thousand soldiers either begins. Some of them have to spread throughout the countryside and requisition goods and whatnot, but most of them are doing not. And
I know.
assures you that he considers this to be allied land, and by requisition, he'll only take what they can get.
Yes.
What is offered. However, most are doing vastly humanitarian stuff, so you guys witness some good come of this. And some days pass during this time. You guys rest within Rockbeard's, watching the growing relationship between Goodlegs and Rockbeard himself. And during
Maylie's
this...
often moved to tears.
Yes.
Of course, the interactions.
And during this time, Gilroy, is during one of these evenings that in your room in Rockbeard's, Silas, who has been making himself busy. There's a lot of good dragonflies and whatnot about for mowing down on.
Sure.
Silas begins his familiar process of sending a strange message, and you hear the rumbling voice from beyond once more as his larger eye rolls back and the white of it turns green and glows forth, illuminating your room with this eerie glow. And he goes, Gilroy, the time has come. Return to Meltan's. Titles and power await.
Thank you. I will make haste, for sure. But forgive me if it takes a little longer than flying there.
Voice responds, I've been waiting long enough to wait some time further. We'll be seeing you soon, Gilroy.
Then Silas goes back.
Yeah, then he goes back to normal.
He's stuck until you get there.
He's stuck like that. Okay, so, upon receiving your message, the next morning, Clara and Arena return back to Waterwheel. Arena, essentially, looking upon all the work that's being done, she is taken aback by the success of this battle, as well as the forces you guys now command. She runs forth to Leander and embraces him and goes, Leander, we were left in Steelhammer Stronghold, and we spoke with the mayor and Rune for some time, and it seems as though they're fully committed now.
It's great news.
Yes, they've provided our forces with those weapons and armor, and well, it seems it all works out in the end.
Indeed, I'm sorry you had to miss it.
Yes, but I'm glad to be back. And, you know, I was thinking, when we left Rejkara's estate down there, well, Brock the Flame, he had committed to making a new Silver Keepers. I know it's thinking a bit of, the times to come, but if Elenvir is going to help us provide any forces, then they're going to need someone to take care of their southern border. The way those skeletal armies emerge from the jungles, there's no one better for the job than us.
I suppose you're right.
If we travel south, let's at the least check in on our friends.
I think it's required at this point.
And she gives a wide smile, and Clara steps forth into Rotbeard's as many of you and your allies gather together once more. And everyone, of course, is glad to see her in decent shape. And she goes, How did the battle go? I can see we won, but at what cost?
Little, to be honest. Waterwheel will be no more, in a sense. But the people remain.
I just love thinking Leander standing behind Gilroy, just
Agreed. She goes, that is a weight off my chest. feared that they would sacrifice so much. The stone can be rebuilt, but the people, that will never happen. Godric, he goes, impressive words. Yes, it was a hard-fought battle, but for a good cause. And Clara goes, thank you, Godric. I am in your debt. He responds, no need. Now then, you stay here for too long. There's gonna be another 20,000 of them at my gates in no time. Best of journeys to you, friends. Thank you for everything you've done here in Kaer Morhen.
It's always a pleasure.
I'm sure we'll see you again sometime.
Oh yes! Expect me on the fields of battle.
Put my hand on his shoulder. Like, keep them safe.
I shall. There's much work to be done, but I'm ready and willing. And with the help of Steelhammer Stronghold, Sigstalter there, Frolfane and the rest, I think Waterwheel, well, it's already survived. And he turns around and heaves his greatsword onto his back and begins to walk forth and assist with the rest of the efforts as Hurston brings the cart around to the front of, or the Landmaster around to the front of Beards. And you can see Sevelius emerge forth from the work, the dust and whatnot. And his face, I mean, despite being a man of noble stature, he has been in the muck of it, and he is dirtied and whatnot, and he goes, so then, what's the plan? You could enchant that thing, make it invisible for a few days, or I'll send some support along with you.
No, let's visit the terrific Tabaxi tailor, and we can dress ourselves up as traveling performers, and we can help her out by unloading her inventory before she has to move.
Claire goes, that kind of sounds like fun.
It is. It's going to be incredible fun.
Velius goes, the traveling performer route, huh? I'll go talk to the tailor. But, he makes his way on over to the Tabaxi tailor, whose name is not readily available. And he requisitions and buys for you, essentially, some sets of traveling performers' clothes. And what kind of clothes do you want? So we got
A clown!
Yeah, we got a clown. We have kind of like a trapeze artist set. You have nothing to do trapeze off of.
Bailey wants that
Okay,
one.
you
I
can
think
have
with
that
her
one.
deck, she
And
can.
we have the ringmaster, and then we have two halves of a donkey.
I will
Well, I know
be
Leander and I are going to be.
Who's the front? Who's the ass of the ass?
Oh.
Does that leave you with the
Clown.
The clown.
You're the ringmaster?
Of course I am. I'm the greatest performer in the group.
He's got a whip.
Yes. Perfect. Can't wait.
And so you guys begin south. Awesome. Hiron.
Well, so, Maylee's gonna go up to Leander and be like, well, if you don't like this idea, and she's gonna like position him so his arms are out, and she's gonna take her basilisk eyes, put it in each of his hands, and be like, now you're a beholder. The human beholder. Well, half-human beholder.
The half-human beholder.
I like this idea. The
That-
freak
That
show.
sounds like an abomination. Yeah.
No sideshow. Just
We'll work on it.
Zorn goes, I'm the sideshow. As he puts on a clown. Everyone has to dress up. Except for Clara, who doesn't. Except her wings, for once, do not have to be hidden away. As, that makes her rather gleeful during this trip. Which you guys find is much calmer than the journeys that you guys have taken before. Partially, you figure, because obviously the Farinwellians are routed, there's no great armies marching forth around this space, and those that are committed to rebuilding. And partially because Diastris is not willing fire giants and frost giants to go to war to whip them into frenzies and thus forth. You guys find that the roads south that you have traveled a few times are rather calm. And in the kinder countryside of northern Elenvir, where the air is not so wicked as in Caradmorn, yet everything is not quite so orderly as in the Elvish kingdom, you find a beautiful hamlet of small wooden structures, painted cabins, lined with flower gardens, and behind them rows of beehives, in which a community of kindly halflings seem to be living their lives. It looked almost like a retreat, and as you guys enter, you guys find that there is a stout, pudgier halfling standing kind of in the midst of their small town square, which the landmaster essentially dominates the entirety of. And as you make your way there, there's a pudgier halfling who's sitting there in a straw hat, and he's smoking a little corncob pipe and watching the day roll by with his hairy feet kicked back, and he goes, "Oh, there they are! You're the ones that Bilberry was talking about! I'm Papa Burntuckle."
What an interesting name. Delightful.
Recognized.
Bilberry never give you his last name.
No.
No.
Bilberry Burntuckle.
Oh, good to know.
Yes.
He's never particularly proud of that one, but that's what it is. So,
Well, it works. It's very alliterative. I like it.
yeah, that's a halfling way. So, what brings you to our little hamlet here? Haven't had any visitors in 30 years.
I heard you had wonderful meaderies.
We do. There was that dwarf in the least. It seems there are people springing up all over the countryside these days, and prior to that, there was no one. So, Kirsten. And you see Kirsten. He looks down at the halfling like, "What did you just say?"
Oh, you've been here before. Very interesting.
He said that there would be a fellow who looked about your sort with a handful of gold for us. So, if you don't mind.
What do you mean by a hand?
Well, he drank a lot of mead, but we're still kind of counting up the bottles. It's a lazy life here. 5 ought to cover it.
5 gold?
Yeah, well, sure.
All right, here's 10, and give me as much as you gave him.
Young halflings with sideburns brown, much like Bilberry's, round forth and begin presenting crates of bottled mead.
Crates, oh my goodness.
Crates and crates. They make a lot here. And, he goes,
This is like Kirsten today.
2 crates of
Limeral drink a lot.
2 crates of Burntuckle mead. And you can see, obviously, these people, well, for one, you know from Bilberry's stories that what he had secured from that wizard was a hidden place for his family to live. However, the price was young halflings every few years or so. That was a big part of the catalyst for Bilberry's revenge against this wizard. However, the magic of it is starting to become clear. They literally were never stumbled upon until that wizard's death.
But they didn't realize it.
They didn't seem to realize it. They just thought they were very isolated, and their entire economy and all of these little halfling families have been living off of brewing mead. That's just all they seem to do. The flower gardens are to feed the bees make honey, they make honey bread and mead off of that, and that's how they live. And Papa Burntuckle, he goes, so you're probably looking for Bilberry. He was relaxing over by the bees. Not those bees. Those bees, as he points past the largest of the cabins, which must very well belong to the oldest of the families who live here, the Burntuckles. And he goes, over by the water there. And you're welcome to stay as long as you like. The lodgings are free.
Oh my goodness.
Thank you.
Mead, free lodging.
And
Where to stay?
Zorn is the
Go
first
for it.
to begin striding over towards Bilberry's position. And he has to make his way past a few, essentially, clouds of bees. Many companions following along. Probably, this is the only interesting thing. So you guys as well. And you do see the slight figure of Bilberry, his feet dangling in a small pond. And he has a fishing pole kind of lazily propped up next to him.
Before anyone gets to him, can I throw a rock at him?
Sure.
Not like hard, not like gonna knock him off or anything.
Not like if he's Zell Ryan.
Exactly.
But like
But maybe
a
I want
friendly
to
rock.
try to hit the fishing pole and knock the fishing pole over.
Okay, throw your attack roll.
Okay.
Knock it into the
So,
21.
20. Well, if it was just my regular for the thing.
I got 18.
18-ish.
Okay, so no, you're gonna whip this rock on over. It hits the fishing pole and it slides on down into the water. And Bilberry looks over his shoulder and with a smile, he shakes his fists. And he goes, "Mainly!" And then he looks upon Zorn and he goes, "Zorn, you almost snuck up on me there. That's impressive. I must be losing my touch. How's it going? It's good to see you all."
Yes, it's very good to see you too, Bilberry.
You met my papa.
Yes.
Indeed.
A good-natured old coot. You all seem to be doing well. I'm glad. It's been going good here. Well, after all that, it makes it worth it. You well, what's Waterwheel like?
Well, we have a lot to tell you.
All right. And he picks up his fishing pole, looking towards Melee with kind of a side eye, and reels it all back in, and collapses it, sticks it on his back, and he goes, "Well, then let's go talk." And he takes you on into the Burntuckle estate, and you guys find that, yeah, there are incredibly cozy, homey rooms, and you are treated to an evening of mead and honey bread, and you get to speak with Bilberry about your adventures thus far, recounting Diastris and the battle at Waterwheel, the Frost Giants, your events in the Whispering Woods as well. And Bilberry, towards the end of it, he goes, kind of puts his hands on his hips, standing up, and goes, "Well then, I've missed out on too much. Time I got back to it."
Yes.
Turns towards his family and goes, "I'll be seeing you soon." And they all go, "We'll miss you, Bilberry!" A bunch of calls out and stuff and waves and whatnot. And there's a little bit of solemnness to his voice as if he doesn't want to go. But you know that there's still a fire in his blood and a spring in his steps. And this is what he needs to do. So he goes, he steps on forth into the morning sun as you guys spend an evening there. And
Families enjoying that you're a hero, Bilberry.
yeah, I think so. I don't know if there's been all too many Burntuckle heroes. So, well, it's good to take that place. And that is where we will cut to break. Oh, I'm sorry. And we'll be back in 5 minutes.
Yeah, but before we cut, thank you to Dave for the 5 bits.
The Dave.
Thank you. Happy birthday to Dave.
Yeah,
Happy
happy birthday.
as well.
Birthday.
Yeah. So thank you guys for joining us so much. If you're new to the stream, you're enjoying the show, if you're new to Freakopolis, consider following. If you have Twitch Prime or Amazon Prime, you can subscribe for free. That helps to support the show and the channel, help us grow. We're going to do a giveaway at 250 followers. We're at 229 right now.
We're getting there.
Yeah, so you'll get something cool from our shop. It's drawn from all the followers. And if you're on YouTube watching this after the fact on Tuesday, consider subscribing there as well. We're going to keep climbing there too. So thank you guys so much for your support. And we'll be back in just a bit.
Sounds good. See you in 5, guys.